Welcome again, everyone, to the Integrated Education and Training Institute. My name is Astrid Leiden, and I am with the Minnesota Department of Education. I'm the Professional Development Specialist, and I am just so excited to be here with you today to dig into integrated education and training and how we can continue to build this exciting approach here in Minnesota adult education. This is our first IET Institute. We've been holding a variety of IET-focused webinars and workshops throughout the year, and this is our culminating event for the spring. This is an opportunity for practitioners from around our state, whether you are new to IET and just trying to get your head around the approach, or whether this is something that you've been using in your program for a number of years. We've designed the day so that there is something for everybody, an opportunity to learn the basics and to dig into some of the nitty-gritty with your colleagues. I want to extend a huge thank you to our colleagues at Atlas who are hosting our event today. A lot of work has gone into the design of our program, as well as all of the logistics to make this event happen today. So thank you so much, Atlas colleagues, for your work on this institute. I also want to thank the Adult Career Pathway advisory group who came together over the past several months to help plan the event, identify topics and presenters, many of whom are also presenting today. So thank you so much to our advisory group members and to everyone who is presenting or facilitating a session today. And with that, I would like to turn things over to my colleagues from the Department of Education, Brad Haskamp, our State Director for Adult Education, and Julie Dinko, our ABE Transitions Specialist. Brad and Julie will set the stage for our work today to help us understand why and how IET is a high priority for our system and how it fits in the broader adult career pathway model.
Thank you so much, Astrid. I'm very happy to be here as well. I want to give a thank you to Astrid for all of your work today and with our professional development efforts. Thanks to Atlas and all of your hard work for today's event, as well as all of the professional development efforts, and also to the ACP group as well. Thank you so much for your advisory work and making a lot of these events happen and focusing on adult career pathways. My name is Brad Haskamp. I'm the State Adult Education Director at the Minnesota Department of Education. My pronouns are he, him. Julie.
Hi, my name is Julie Dinko, and I'm the Transitions Specialist at the Minnesota Department of Education. And my pronouns are she, her.
Thank you, Julie. Julie and I are really happy to be here, and I'm thankful to co-present and share a little bit of this information about IET and why IET is a priority in adult education. So a couple of things. I should just set the scene by saying integrated education and training is not a new concept for us in adult education. The term might be rather new, but the concept is not. For a couple of decades now, we've been working on contextualizing our work, making it more relevant for our adult learners, connecting the academic work with the work and life skills that are needed to succeed and in order to really be as active as a citizen, as a family member, as a worker as possible within the state of Minnesota. And so that's why this works so well, and that's why this is continuing to be a priority in adult education, no matter what we call it. But what I like about IET in particular, it puts our learners as a top priority. By giving them opportunities to build multiple types of skills, not just do the academic skills in one setting and the life skills in another setting and the workforce prep in another class, and then maybe they can advance on to like work training or post-secondary. This combines them all. It allows learners to build multiple types of skills, earn multiple types of credentials simultaneously instead of sequentially, which helps our learners move a little faster. Not saying that they can learn extra fast, but the more we can contextualize and blend, the better we can make the experience for learners. So that's important to make our learners a top priority. In addition, it really kind of helps, encourages, maybe even forces our system of adult education to collaborate with our other system partners, post-secondary, workforce development, employers, career tech ed, because we know that as adult education, we are a small but mighty force. But we can't just do it all alone. We really need our partners to make this happen. We need to create those great bridges. We need to create seamless programming. And so by our multi-system collaboration, by reaching out with our partners, by working and integrating this work, we can do better and we can do more. Also, this really aligns with best practices nationally and through the federal law. We hear a lot from states like Washington and other states that really are succeeding with this work. And you know what? We in Minnesota don't like to just say, well, they're doing it well, that's good enough. We know in Minnesota, we always want to be the best. And so that's why this is also really exciting work for us as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Julie. Julie.
All right, thank you, Brad, and welcome everyone. Before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty of the Institute, there's a distinction that we need to clarify kind of right off the bat. And I know this can be confusing because it was rolled out from the federal office a little confusing, and there needs to be more clarification around it. But it's the distinction between adult career pathway and integrated education and training. So adult career pathway was written into the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act in 2014, a definition of what an adult career pathway is. In addition, there's a definition for integrated education and training. So if you look at this slide, they start off, the federal definitions of an adult career pathway starts off with saying a career pathway means a combination of rigorous and high quality education. So you have the education in there, you have the training piece in there, and other services that, and if we go to the next slide, we'll see that they have listed 7 different components of what an adult career pathway is. And these components are not always sequential components that fit nicely into a little, timeline. They're components that happen constantly and continuously. And IET is called out in one of those components, and you can see it's D there, and it includes as appropriate education offered concurrently with and in the same context as workforce prep activities and training for a specific occupation or occupational cluster. So an adult IET must fit into an adult career pathway, but an adult career pathway does not have to include IET. So if we go to the next slide, that might explain it a little more. I'm trying to draw an analogy of how you can look at this. So if you look at it as like a loaf of bread is an adult career pathway, all right? That's the whole big goal, is like a loaf of bread. Well, then you have all the ingredients that you need in order to make that loaf of bread. And just one of those ingredients is integrated education and training. But you also need like the support services and all these other pieces to make it an adult career pathway. So IET is just one of those ingredients. But IET, just like you can substitute, whole wheat flour, pastry flour, or cake flour for all-purpose flour in bread, although I've never done that myself, but you can do it, I've been told. You can substitute that IET component with other pieces like a pre-apprenticeship or an on-the-job training or other pieces in that adult career pathway. So I hope that explains it a little better. I know it takes a little work to make sure you get a good understanding of the difference and how IET fits into an adult career pathway. But that's just some of the basic difference between the two. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Brad.
Thanks, Julie. I really like that thought of thinking about this work as that adult career pathway work as kind of a recipe. That's excellent. You know, and I'm going to give another metaphor here. So like let's think of our IET work and our adult career pathway work as stepping stones across a fast moving river. So when you're thinking about being on one bank, and maybe many of our learners are on one side of that river and they want to get to the other side, and that other side includes an excellent career that helps them with family sustaining salaries and a fulfilling job. And that river is raging. It looks dangerous. It looks confusing. It can be overwhelming. Like, how am I going to cross this river? And that is where we as adult education programs can help create stepping stones to get across that river. We can create those stones for learners to cross. And we can create a variety of stones. Not everyone has to cross the same stones or go the exact same path, but we as adult education programs should be thinking about how can we help learners cross that river, and how can we create stepping stones where we are not doing the work for the learners, but we're actually creating the structures, the pathways, so that learners can cross safely and can succeed and get to the other side where they want to be. And IETs would be kind of that final stepping stone before they get to the next side, before they get into a career. So an IET is just one of those stones in the path. The adult career pathway is the entire path, and not every learner's pathway looks the same. So that's why we create a variety of pathways within our adult education programs. So that's just another metaphor to think about the work. How can we help our learners get across that river? So with that, let's actually open it up already. Let's take some time to answer some questions that you might have. What great questions do you have that you'd like to see answered right now? Feel free to enter those questions directly in the chat, or you can click and raise your hand if you'd like to ask your questions verbally. I don't believe that we are a very shy group here in Minnesota, so and in adult education. So I'm hoping that you have some great questions. I see one in the chat here. I mentioned that Washington is really doing a lot of work on this. Can I share some examples? Yeah, great question. So IBES has been doing this work for quite some time, for a couple of decades at this point, and what they call it is IBEST. Julie, what does IBEST stand for again?
Integrated Basic Education, something training.
Skills training, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Integrated Basic Education and Skills Training. Yep.
Yep. And so Washington has been doing this. Their adult education system is in the post-secondary system. So they really have a strong co-teaching model within their colleges of an adult education teacher working with a college teacher, or ABE, and the post-secondary teacher working side by side. And they have a wide variety of pathways available through their colleges and through their adult education system. So it feels seamless. You're like, the learners are enrolled in one class and it's co-taught and they're able to go forward. And that's what a lot of the IET work looks like in Washington State. Julie, anything you'd add about that?
Just also that the importance, I feel, of IBEST is that they related to that was the tipping point study. And this was done in 2009, 2010. So it's a little bit dated. But what they showed when they studied adult basic education learners, that unless it takes them about a year of college, now this is in Washington, it could be different here in Minnesota, and a credential for that individual to actually move into a living wage position or job. So that it really, I think, has a huge impact on adult basic education and how we need to help learners get into careers.
Absolutely. I hope that answered your question, Kimberly. If you have additional questions, please feel free to chime in with any follow-ups. Danielle asked, what's the difference between IET and transitions? Do you want to start that response, Julie?
Sure, absolutely. So when I speak of transitions, I'm really speaking of transitioning adult learners into employment, training, or post-secondary. And so IET is an approach that can be used to help transition adult learners, I would say probably use quite a bit with like post-secondary career and tech ed credential programming. Really, that's what our focus is on, kind of CTE, short-term credentials. But it's also transitioning them into like job shadowing or workplace literacy, that type of work. So transitions is very much like a very big umbrella. That includes adult career pathways, IET, and different. It's just the concept that adult basic education has changed from getting individuals a GED and say goodbye, good luck, we wish you the best. We realize that's not good enough. We need to literally help people get into employment, post-secondary, or training.
Absolutely. Yep. Thank you, Julie.
Yep.
And then one other question comes in. Why hasn't Minnesota been able to develop these partnerships between ABE and community and technical colleges? It seems like there are a few situations where that is working here, but that's not the quote unquote model. And I would just start by saying, yes, we are seeing some of that happen throughout the state of Minnesota. And we are seeing some great partnerships between ABE and the community and technical colleges where they are getting IETs off the ground. We have several IETs that are launched and are collaborative efforts with our college, our post-secondary system. And you'll hear from many of them throughout the day as well in the sessions. Now, where we've seen some key challenges about why they're a little harder to sustain, being in two separate systems creates some challenges, whether that be like just for logistical purposes, also in creating and sustaining partnerships. We've seen quite a bit of turnover in staffing in adult education, but even more so in that community and technical college side. So maybe some of our AB programs have developed a great relationship with some of the folks and maybe deans at the colleges, and then those deans will leave or take a different job in another college, and then it feels like the ABE program has to start all over with those partnership efforts, and that has created some challenges. In addition, just some of the logistics, like because there are different kind of structures and terminologies that are being used, sometimes that concept of co-teaching can cause like a lot of red flags within the institutions or within the colleges. And so the wording and the phrasing of what happens has to kind of be a little bit nuanced there so that it doesn't violate any of the staffing contracts or anything like that. Julie, would you add anything else?
Just that in the states where this is really taking off and doing well, if you look at them, they are states where adult basic education is delivered through like their post-secondary system. So that would be Minnesota State. Here in Minnesota. Unfortunately, a lot of those states do not serve the literacy levels that Minnesota does. They tend to serve more adult basic education students. So we're trying to do both, and I think we're doing a pretty good job at it. And
Yes.
I think we really have some promising practices and places, but it is difficult. They're two different systems, and it's trying to get rid of the barriers that both systems have.
Absolutely. Thanks, Julie. So, and thank you also, Karen Wolters, for putting the link to IBET for iBest information in the chat. At this point, we've kind of run out of time for initial questions here, so I'm going to turn it back over to Heather.
Thank you, Brad, and thank you, Julie, and I want to thank everyone for attending our first IET Institute. My name is Heather Turngren, and I work with Atlas as a consultant for the Adult Career Pathways projects, which is including IET. I also work with Minneapolis Adult Education. If you look back in the chat, Gail chatted out a link to our flyer, which will allow you to click and get into the different sessions. We try to keep everything for the IET Institute at your fingertips. There is a link that Gail also put into the chat, which is the participant folder if you'd like to see some of the materials or session slides from the different sessions. You can find that. There is also some information if some people are looking for CEUs for this institute, but the institute folders as well as the flyer can have a lot of information at your fingertips. I'd like to talk a little bit about the upcoming sessions. So before that, I want to talk about some other information that is at your fingertips. You can always find a lot of information at Atlas. I call Atlas your one-stop shop for anything related with adult basic education. But we're talking about adult career pathways and IETs today. So there is something inside the resources links in Atlas, and Gail is chatting out those links for you right now into the chat. So you can find information about adult career pathways, you can find curriculum, you can find links to information about IETs. There's also information shared amongst myself and many others within the Minnesota Adult Basic Education networking facility we have through Mighty Networks. Marisa wrote a wonderful article last year about how to access Mighty Networks. You can join the Adult Career Pathways group or other groups, whatever is of your interest. But we try to share weekly or bi-weekly information, tips, upcoming webinars, as much information that we get from many sources around the state as well as nationally. And again, the IET Institute flyer is where you'll find the links to get into our upcoming sessions. The next slide has information about our sessions. We've planned it so we have 2 sessions and we'll have a break between each session so that you can get to the sessions. There are 2 concurrent sessions offered at each time. One strand, which you'll see on the left, it says, for those of you who are perhaps new to IET and you still don't quite understand all the different components, we have a session for you from 1:30 to 2:30. We'll have Brad and Julie discuss further about back to the basics of IET 101. For those of you who have a little bit more experience with IETs, I suggest you go to the other session, which is on the right side of your screen. This one is my slow story, or SSLO, and that's the single set of learning objectives. We have a great panel of presenters who will explain how they created their SSLO, which is part of having an IET. At 2:20, we'll take a 10-minute break and we'll reconvene at 2:30. You'll get those links again from the flyer. And if you look on the left of your screen, again, for those of you who are new to IET, we have something called the Iet Design Toolkit. And I will be presenting with my colleague, Christine Kelly, on unpacking that toolkit and making it useful for you. On the right side of the screen, you'll see the session for those of you, again, with more experience with IET. You can hear from Penny and Jill about their work on developing regional model for IET delivery within Southeast Minnesota. All of these, I think, are going to be really engaging sessions and make the use of your time here today to learn more about IETs. At 3:20, you'll have a brief break. We'll reconvene and you'll go into your regional transitions areas and then discuss. So I'm just welcoming you to the IET Institute. Please enjoy your sessions. We'll have a 5-minute break and please click on the flyer to join the session that works best for you. Thanks all and enjoy your sessions today.